At a busy city restaurant, an elderly couple timidly looks at the menu, afraid they can't afford anything. A kind black waitress notices and gently says, "Don't worry, I've got this." Bring them their favorite dishes. Their eyes fill with tears. They can't believe her kindness. The very next day, a world-famous Arabic billionaire walks in, and what he does next will change her life forever. But let me take you back to where this all began, because to understand why what happens next is so extraordinary, you need to see what Maya's life was really like. The sun barely peeks through the skyscrapers of the city as Maya steps out of her tiny apartment. To anyone passing by, she looks like a regular waitress, apron neatly tied, pen tucked behind her ear, a polite smile on her face. But behind that smile is a story most people would never imagine. Maya is 27, bright-eyed, and fiercely independent. She grew up in a neighborhood where opportunities were scarce, and dreams often stayed just that, dreams. Her mother worked 2 jobs. Her father had left when she was a child, and Maya learned early that kindness doesn't always come back. But that didn't stop her from offering it. She works long hours at a downtown restaurant, a job that barely pays the rent for her modest apartment. Every day, she balances trays, takes orders, and endures the occasional rude customer. But there's a spark in Maya. It's the way she remembers a regular's favorite drink, or notices when someone seems down, quietly offering a smile or a word of encouragement. To her, kindness isn't an option. It's a necessity. Yet life hasn't been easy. Maya carries the weight of student loans, medical bills for her younger brother, and the constant worry of what tomorrow might bring. Many nights she wonders if her sacrifices will ever amount to more than just keeping the lights on. But she keeps going, because giving up is never in her nature. It's this relentless spirit that leads her to that fateful evening, a night that starts like any other, customers coming and going, orders piling up, the hum of conversation filling the air, but will end in a way she could never have predicted. As Maya wipes down tables and adjusts napkins, she notices them, an elderly couple sitting at the corner table. They glance at the menu, hands trembling slightly, exchanging worried looks. Maya's heart tightens. She's seen that look before, people who are scared to eat because they can't afford it. Without hesitation, she approaches them with her signature warmth. "Don't worry," she says softly. "I've got this." And with that, she orders their favorite dishes, smiling as they look at her in stunned silence. Their eyes fill with tears. They can't believe someone would do this for them. Little do they know, this simple act of generosity will set off a chain of events that will bring Maya face to face with a world she's only ever dreamed about. A world of unimaginable wealth, influence, and opportunity. And it all starts with her unwavering kindness. Maya's life wasn't just about financial struggles. It was about resilience, about refusing to let hardship harden her heart. It was about a character that could be tested by life's harshest challenges and still choose to do what's right. So let's rewind a bit and dive deeper into the life that shaped her. Because to truly appreciate what happens next, you need to know the person behind the act of kindness, the struggles, the sacrifices, and the unwavering heart of Maya. Maya's story didn't begin with a restaurant apron or the smell of sizzling food. It began in a cramped apartment on the other side of the city where the walls were thin, and life often felt heavier than she could bear. Her childhood was a mix of love, hardship, and lessons that would shape her character forever. Her mother, a woman of extraordinary strength, worked 2 jobs, day and night shifts, just to keep food on the table. Maya often helped her mother carry groceries, clean the apartment, and care for her younger brother, Jamal. Her father was absent for most of her life. He left when Maya was 8, leaving behind only vague promises that never materialized. The emptiness his absence created was profound, but it also taught Maya early on to rely on herself and to find strength and responsibility. School wasn't much of an escape either. Maya was bright, but she faced constant discrimination and low expectations from teachers who assumed her background defined her potential. Some classmates bullied her, targeting her for the color of her skin or the tattered clothes she sometimes wore. But Maya learned to let their words roll off her back, channeling her energy into learning and dreaming of something bigger. Her teenage years brought new challenges. When her mother fell ill, Maya took on part-time jobs after school, delivering groceries, babysitting, even cleaning offices. Money was always tight, and yet she somehow managed to keep her grades up, earning small scholarships and a recognition for her academic achievements. Through it all, Maya's guiding principle was simple. No matter how hard life gets, never let it harden your heart. She learned to find joy in small moments, a smile from a stranger, the satisfaction of helping someone, a quiet evening reading under the dim light of a lamp. It was this mindset that shaped the woman she became at the restaurant. Maya had seen hardship, yes, but she had also learned that kindness had power. She understood that an act of generosity, no matter how small, could ripple far beyond what anyone might imagine. So when she noticed the elderly couple at her restaurant, her instinct wasn't hesitation. It was action. She remembered the nights her mother had given extra meals to neighbors who had less, the times she herself had wished for a kind word or gesture, and she knew exactly what to do. Maya's heart had been shaped by struggle, but it had never been hardened by it. And that is precisely why her next encounter, the one with the billionaire, would be so extraordinary. Because sometimes life reserves its greatest rewards for those who give selflessly, even when they have so little to give. The universe has a curious way of noticing these people, those who act out of pure kindness, without expectation. And it was about to notice Maya. The next day, the city buzzed with its usual energy, horns honking, street vendors calling out, people rushing to work. Maya walked into the restaurant expecting another long shift filled with orders, complaints, and the occasional tip that barely covered a bus ride home. She had no idea that this day would change her life forever. Around mid-afternoon, the restaurant's front doors swung open, and in walked a man whose presence immediately commanded attention. He wasn't just any customer. He was Hassan al-Mansouri, one of the wealthiest and most influential Arabic billionaires in the world. Known for his business acumen, luxurious lifestyle, and high-profile philanthropic ventures, Hassan was a man accustomed to getting what he wanted. But today he wasn't here for business. He scanned the room with sharp, observant eyes, dressed impeccably in a tailored suit that hinted at understated power. As he approached the counter, Maya's co-workers whispered in awe, some even holding back their excitement. She, however, didn't flinch. To her, he was just another customer, albeit one who looked like he stepped straight out of a magazine cover. Hassan ordered a simple espresso and sat near the corner of the restaurant. But as he waited, he noticed something unusual. His eyes, trained to detect subtle cues, landed on Maya. He saw more than a waitress taking orders. He saw a woman who carried herself with quiet dignity, whose attention to every detail suggested pride and care in her work, despite the challenges she faced. Curiosity piqued. Hassan asked the server at his table, "Who is she?" "She's Maya," came the response. "One of our best. Really kind-hearted, always goes out of her way for others." Hassan's interest deepened. He didn't just notice skill or efficiency, he noticed heart, and heart in his world was rare. Just then, Maya glanced toward the elderly couple sitting in her section. The same couple from the previous night. She had been thinking about them, worried if they were all right, if the little act of kindness had truly brightened their day. She had no idea that her simple gesture had been quietly observed by someone with immense power, someone who recognized what the world often overlooks, the courage to be kind when no one is watching. Hassan decided he wanted to see this firsthand. As Maya approached his table to take his order, he smiled warmly and said, "I've heard about you." Maya froze, her heart skipping a beat. "Excuse me?" she asked, unsure if she had heard correctly. "I heard about your kindness," he said. "About the elderly couple. The way you help them without expecting anything in return. That takes character, and character is rare." Maya blinked, trying to process the words. In her mind, it was just part of who she was, a simple act of decency. She hadn't done it for recognition, for fame, or for money. She had done it because it was the right thing to do. Hassan leaned forward slightly, his voice calm but commanding. "I want to help you. Not just today, but in a way that can change your life forever." Maya's mind raced. Was this a prank? A scam? She had faced con men and skeptics all her life. But something in Hassan's eyes, the genuine warmth, the unmistakable sincerity, told her this was real. This moment right here was the turning point. The moment when the universe, in its mysterious way, decided that Maya's kindness could no longer go unnoticed. For a moment, the bustling restaurant seemed to fade into silence. The clatter of dishes, the hum of conversation, even the sound of the espresso machine, all of it blurred as Maya tried to process the billionaire's words. "You want to help me?" she repeated cautiously, her voice almost a whisper. Hassan nodded, his expression steady. "Yes, I don't believe in coincidences. Yesterday I was in a meeting across the street and I heard whispers about a young waitress who paid for an elderly couple's meal out of her own pocket. Today I see you, and I know this is not chance. It's the universe pointing me in your direction." Maya felt a knot form in her throat. She wasn't used to being noticed, let alone by someone like him. People often overlooked her, blending her into the background of their busy lives. But now this man, this world-famous billionaire, was speaking to her as if she mattered. Still, skepticism lingered. "Why me? There are so many people in need. I'm just a waitress trying to get by." Hassan leaned back, his gaze never leaving hers. "That's exactly why. You helped someone even when you didn't have much to give. That reveals more about your character than any resume or degree ever could. I invest in people, not just businesses, and I see potential in you." Her heart pounded. "Potential? What did he mean?" Hassan continued, his voice calm but firm. "Tell me, Maya, what are your dreams? What is it that you want to do if money and circumstance weren't holding you back?" The question caught her off guard. Dreams? She hadn't thought about that in years. Survival had left little room for daydreams. But deep down, she knew the answer. "I always wanted to open a community center," she admitted hesitantly. "A place where kids could come after school. Somewhere safe, and with tutoring, mentorship, even meals for those who need it. I know what it's like to feel invisible, and I don't want others to feel that way." For a moment, Hassan didn't speak. Then, with a small smile, he said, "Good. That's not just a dream, that's a purpose. And I can help you make it real." Maya's breath caught in her chest. Was this really happening? "I'll fund it," Hassan said simply. "Every brick, every book, every program. But more than that, I'll mentor you. I'll show you how to manage it, grow it, sustain it. Because kindness deserves a platform, and you, Maya, are the one to build it." Tears welled in her eyes, but she quickly blinked them away, afraid of looking unprofessional. She had spent her entire life giving, never expecting anything in return. And now, here was someone offering to give back, on a scale she couldn't even fathom. I don't know what to say, Maya whispered. Say yes, Hassan replied gently. Not for yourself, but for the lives you'll touch. Because sometimes the world doesn't just reward kindness, it multiplies it. At that moment, Maya felt something shift inside her. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel trapped by her circumstances. She felt possibility. What she didn't know, however, was that accepting Hassan's offer wouldn't just open doors. It would also test her in ways she had never been tested before. Success brings opportunity, yes, but it also brings challenges, doubts, and enemies she never expected. This was only the beginning of a journey that would transform her life forever. That night, Maya lay awake in her small apartment, staring at the cracked ceiling. Her mind was a storm of questions. Could this be real? Was Hassan serious, or was this just another empty promise, like the ones her father had made so many years ago? But there was something about Hassan's eyes, his conviction, his calmness, that made her believe this was different. For once, someone saw her not as a struggling waitress, but as a woman with vision, with purpose. The very next morning, she received a call. A sleek black car waited outside her building, the driver holding a sign with her name. Nervously, Maya stepped inside, her heart pounding, as the car pulled into the city's wealthiest district. The car stopped in front of a towering glass skyscraper, its surface reflecting the morning sun like a beacon of power. This was Hassan's headquarters, the center of an empire that spanned across industries, real estate, technology, philanthropy, and more. As Maya stepped inside, she was overwhelmed. The lobby itself looked like something out of a dream. Marble floors, cascading fountains, art worth more than she could ever imagine. She felt small, out of place, as though she had accidentally wandered into a world that didn't belong to her. But then Hassan appeared, his warm smile instantly easing her nerves. "Maya," he said, extending his hand. "Welcome. Today we begin." He led her through corridors filled with people in sharp suits and polished shoes. Yet, despite their wealth and status, Maya noticed something. When Hassan spoke, everyone listened. He wasn't just powerful because of his money. He commanded respect because he had built something greater than wealth, influence rooted in trust and vision. Finally, he brought her into a spacious conference room, its walls lined with books, maps, and screens displaying global projects. On the table sat blueprints, folders, and documents with one bold heading, Community Development Project. Maya's eyes widened. "Is this?" "Yes," Hassan said, nodding. "Your community center, or rather, the first of many. I told you I invest in people, Maya. And I believe in you. But now comes the true test. Can you take this vision and bring it to life?" Her hands trembled as she picked up the papers. Detailed plans, budgets, even locations were already outlined. It was overwhelming, but in the best possible way. "I don't know if I can do this," she admitted quietly, her voice wavering. Hassan placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You can. And you won't be alone. I will guide you, but you must lead. Because leadership, born from kindness, is stronger than leadership, born from ambition." Those words sank deep into her heart. For the first time in years, Maya felt like her dreams weren't just wishes whispered into the night. They were becoming tangible. And yet beneath the excitement, doubt lingered. Could a waitress with no business degree really build something so monumental? Could she truly stand in a world filled with power, money, and influence, and not lose herself? What Maya didn't know was that the journey ahead would be filled with obstacles. skeptics who doubted her, competitors who envied her, and even her own fears that threatened to pull her back. But it would also bring triumphs, friendships, and a kind of purpose she had only ever dreamed of. For now, as she sat in that towering office with plans spread before her, Maya felt one thing above all else: hope. The universe had noticed her kindness, and now it was her turn to see just how far that kindness could take her. The first week of planning felt like a whirlwind. Maya sat in meetings surrounded by experts, architects, financial advisors, project managers, all using terms she had never heard before. Budgets, zoning permits, structural blueprints, community outreach strategies. It was overwhelming, and for the first time since Hassan's offer, Maya felt the crushing weight of self-doubt. In one meeting, a sharply dressed consultant leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, and said with thinly veiled skepticism, "With all due respect, Mr. Al-Mansouri, I don't see how someone with her background can manage a project of this scale. Perhaps we should appoint a professional." The words hit Maya like a dagger. She wanted to shrink into her seat, disappear into the shadows. But before she could speak, Hassan's calm yet firm voice cut through the room. "She is the professional," he said. "Not because of degrees or titles, but because of vision. Numbers and buildings are easy. What's hard is heart. And Maya has more of that than anyone in this room." The silence that followed was deafening. The consultant shifted uncomfortably, lowering his eyes. For the first time, Maya realized Hassan wasn't just supporting her. He was defending her, staking his reputation on her success. Still, when the meeting ended, she couldn't shake the heaviness in her chest. She lingered by the window, staring out at the city skyline. "Why me?" she finally asked, turning to Hassan. "You could have chosen anyone. Someone with more experience, more knowledge. What if I fail? What if everyone's right?" Hassan studied her for a moment, then said quietly, "Failure only comes when you stop trying. Listen to me, Maya. Every empire I built, every venture I began, started with doubt. People laughed, people resisted. But vision isn't about what they see. It's about what you see, and I see greatness in you." His words gave her strength, but the road ahead was far from smooth. Over the next few weeks, Maya found herself juggling countless responsibilities, visiting potential sites, reviewing designs, attending community forums where locals voiced concerns. Some were supportive, but others questioned her motives. One woman at a forum asked bluntly, "Why should we trust you? You're just a waitress. What do you know about running a community center?" Maya's throat tightened. But instead of shrinking back, she found her voice. "I know what it's like to grow up without one," she said firmly. "I know what it's like to have nowhere to go after school, to feel invisible, to need a safe place and not have it, and that's why I'm here. Not to build for myself, but to build for kids who deserve better." The room went quiet. For the first time, Maya felt her words carried weight. She wasn't just speaking as a waitress anymore. She was speaking as a leader. That night, Hassan called her. "You see," he said, "leadership doesn't come from titles. It comes from truth, and your truth is powerful." Maya smiled faintly, feeling a spark ignite inside her. The doubts weren't gone, but something stronger was taking root. Determination. She didn't know it yet, but the first foundation of the community center wouldn't just be laid in bricks and cement. It was being laid in her courage to stand, to speak, to keep moving despite the doubts. This was only the beginning of the fight to turn her dream into reality. Weeks of planning passed, and Maya was beginning to find her rhythm. Meetings with consultants no longer felt like a foreign language. She was learning to ask sharper questions, to stand her ground when others doubted her. Slowly, she was transforming from a nervous outsider into a leader with vision. Her story even began to attract attention from local media. At first, it felt like a blessing. Cameras showed up to cover the groundbreaking of the community center. Reporters asked for interviews, and for a brief moment, Maya thought people were finally starting to see the dream the way she did. But then came the headline that stopped her cold. Billionaire backs Waitress from the wrong side of town charity or pity project. The article wasn't a celebration of her kindness. It was a thinly veiled attack. It painted Maya as unqualified, someone plucked from obscurity for the sake of a publicity stunt. And worse, it carried an undertone she recognized instantly, the subtle but cutting racism she had felt her whole life. The comments section was even harsher. She's just a waitress? What does she know about running a center? There are people more deserving. Why her? Typical playing the sympathy card. Maya sat in her small apartment, scrolling through the words, her hands trembling. Each line felt like a blade. She had spent years trying to prove she was more than the stereotypes placed on her, and now the world was trying to drag her back into that box. The following evening, she attended a community forum to discuss the center. As she walked to the front of the room, she heard two parents whispering behind her. "She's just another girl from the projects," one muttered. "What makes her any different from the rest?" Maya froze. For a moment, she thought about walking away, letting the weight of their words silence her. But then, she remembered her mother's voice, the sacrifices she had made, and the faces of the kids the center was meant for. She turned, looking directly at the crowd, her voice steady though her heart was racing. "What makes me different," she said, "is that I know what these kids go through. I lived it. I know what it feels like to be invisible, to need a safe place and not have one. That's why I'm here. Not because I'm perfect, but because I refuse to let them grow up without hope." The room went silent. Then slowly people began to nod. A woman in the front row wiped her eyes. Someone clapped, then another, until the whole room was filled with applause. Hassan, watching from the back, felt a fire rise in his chest. He had seen racism rear its head countless times in his own life, and now he saw Maya confronting it head-on with courage and dignity. Later that night, Hassan told her, "Do you see what just happened? They tried to box you in, to make you smaller, but you stood tall. That's leadership, Maya. That's power." For the first time, Maya realized that this fight wasn't just about building a center. It was about breaking barriers, about proving that kindness and vision can rise above prejudice. And though the sting of those headlines still lingered, she knew one thing. She would not let racism define her story. The applause from the forum had given Maya hope, but it didn't erase the sting of the article or the harsh words whispered behind her back. If anything, the backlash grew stronger. Everywhere she turned, there seemed to be another barrier. When she met with city officials to discuss permits, she noticed the way one of them looked at her, disbelief hidden behind a polite smile. "You're leading this project?" he asked, his tone dripping with skepticism. "Impressive for someone of your background." Maya knew exactly what he meant. She'd heard it before, in classrooms where teachers doubted her potential, in stores where security guards followed her around, and now in boardrooms where power was measured not just by money, but by skin color. At the construction site, the whispers continued. Some workers respected her vision, but others muttered loud enough for her to hear. "She's just a waitress? Bet the billionaire is pulling all the strings. This is just for show." Each word was a reminder that, in their eyes, she didn't belong here. One afternoon, Maya found herself sitting on the steps of the half-finished building, staring at the steel beams rising against the sky. For the first time, doubt pressed hard against her chest. Maybe they were right. Maybe she was in over her head. Hassan joined her quietly, noticing her distant stare. "Talk to me," he said. "They don't see me," Maya whispered. "No matter what I do, they'll always see a black waitress, not a leader. Maybe this was a mistake." Hassan's gaze hardened, but his voice was steady. "Maya, listen carefully. People will always try to define you by the limits of their imagination. That's not your burden, it's theirs. You are not here to prove them wrong. You are here to prove yourself right." She turned to him, tears burning at the corners of her eyes. "But it hurts, Hassan. It hurts that kindness isn't enough. And my skin, my past, it's all they see." He nodded slowly. "I know. I've felt it too in boardrooms where my accent made me a target, where my heritage made me less than. But every time I remembered this, prejudice is loud, but it is not truth, and you, Maya, are living proof of that." His words lit a fire in her. She wasn't going to let racism write her story. If anything, she would build this center so powerfully, so undeniably, that no headline, no whisper, no skeptic could erase it. At the next press conference, she stood taller than before. The questions came sharp. "Do you really have the experience for this? Aren't you just a symbol for Mr. Al-Mansouri's charity? What qualifies you beyond a touching backstory?" Maya met their eyes and answered calmly. "I may not have a degree in architecture or business, but I have something just as important: experience. I lived the struggles this center is meant to solve. I know what these kids need because I was one of them. This project isn't about charity, it's about justice. And I won't stop until it's built." The room buzzed with murmurs. Some reporters frowned, others nodded thoughtfully. For the first time, Maya wasn't just defending herself, she was claiming her space. The fight against racism wasn't over. It would never truly be over. But Maya was learning to turn the sting of prejudice into fuel, the whispers into fire, and the doubt into determination. Brick by brick, she wasn't just building a community center, she was building proof that kindness and resilience could outlast even the loudest voices of hate. The steel frame of the center stood tall, a skeleton of hope rising from the ground. Every day, kids walked by with wide eyes. Parents whispered about how it might change their neighborhood. And Maya felt the dream becoming real. But not everyone was happy. A group of critics, emboldened by the negative press, began organizing against her. Flyers appeared on community boards, money wasted on a waitress's fantasy. Online posts spread like wildfire. "She's not qualified. This is just billionaire PR. Why should we trust her with our kids?" And beneath those words, sharper comments lurked. Dripping with racism she knew all too well. One morning, Maya arrived at the site to find graffiti scrawled across the construction wall. "Go back where you belong." She froze. The words were jagged, black paint dripping like venom. For a long moment she just stood there, staring at the cruel message. Workers shuffled uncomfortably, unsure of what to do. Her hands shook, but she didn't look away. She called for a bucket of paint. Without saying a word, she climbed a ladder, dipped the roller, and began covering the words herself. Stroke by stroke, she painted until the slur disappeared beneath a fresh coat of white. When she finished, she turned to the crowd that had gathered. Her voice was calm, but it carried. "You can try to erase me with words, but I will answer you with action. This center is not for hate. It is for love, for dignity, for every child who needs a chance. And no paint, no slur, no prejudice will stop me." Someone began clapping, then another, Within seconds, the site was filled with applause, not just from her team, but from parents, neighbors, even strangers who had come to see what the commotion was. That evening, local news covered the moment. But instead of twisting her story, this time they showed Maya's defiance, her strength. The clip went viral. The image of a young black waitress-turned-leader painting over hate, refusing to bow. Hassan watched the broadcast with a heavy heart. He had seen empires rise and fall, fortunes made and lost. But this act of courage was something deeper. He knew then that Maya wasn't just building a center, she was building a movement here. But behind the applause, the resistance didn't vanish. If anything, and the attacks grew sharper. Anonymous emails, veiled threats, louder protests at community meetings. Racism doesn't go quietly, it fights to stay alive. And Maya knew she was in the fight of her life. The day had finally come. The once empty lot was now a gleaming building of glass and steel, painted in bright colors with murals of children smiling across its walls. The community center was ready. On the morning of the grand opening, crowds gathered early. Parents with their kids, neighbors from all walks of life, teachers, even city officials, they all came to witness history. Maya stood inside, her hands pressed against the podium she would soon speak from, her heart racing. But outside the gates, another crowd gathered. A group of protesters holding signs. "This is a sham. Billionaire PR stunt. Unqualified, unfit." Some of the signs cut deeper than the rest. The ugly kind, the kind that reduced her to nothing more than her skin color. Their voices rose in chants, trying to drown out the music and laughter inside. For a moment, Maya's chest tightened. She had fought so hard, but here it was, again hate trying to steal the moment. Hassan stepped beside her. "You don't have to face them," he said softly. But Maya shook her head. "Yes, I do." She walked out to the gates, the crowd inside watching silently. The protesters shouted louder when they saw her, their voices sharp with anger. Maya raised her hand. Slowly the noise began to fade. She spoke, her voice steady and strong. "I see your signs, I hear your words, and I want you to know something. This building is not mine. It belongs to the children who will learn here, to the teens who will find safety here, to the parents who will finally have a place to turn when they need help. You cannot scare me away. You cannot shame me away, because this center is stronger than hate. It is built on hope, and hope does not bow." Her words carried over the crowd, silencing even the loudest voices. And then a remarkable thing happened. Parents from inside the center began stepping out, standing behind Maya, then kids, then elders from the community. One by one, they formed a line behind her, showing that she was not alone. The protesters wavered. Their shouts grew weaker, drowned out by the applause that rose from the people Maya had fought so hard to serve. With tears in her eyes, Maya turned back to the center, where Hassan waited at the podium. Together they cut the ribbon. The doors opened, and the children rushed inside, their laughter filling the halls for the first time. It was more than an opening. It was a victory. Not just over poverty, not just over doubt, but over racism itself. Maya had faced the voices that told her she wasn't enough, and she had answered them not with anger, but with vision, courage, and unshakable dignity. The community center stood tall, not just as a building, but as a monument to the truth. Kindness, once planted, can grow strong enough to silence hate. The cheers from the ribbon cutting still echoed in Maya's ears long after the crowd had filed inside. Children's laughter filled the freshly painted halls. Parents walked hand in hand with their kids, and volunteers guided groups through the different rooms. The Horizon Center was no longer an idea, no longer a blueprint. It was alive. Maya lingered by the entrance for a moment, trying to take it all in. Just hours earlier, she had faced the jeers of people who wanted her to fail, people who reduced her to her skin color, her job title, her supposed unworthiness. But now those same voices had been drowned out by applause, by solidarity, by hope. She whispered to herself, "We did it." But even as she said the words, she knew it wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. Maya walked into the main hall where a group of children sat in a circle with crayons scattered across the floor. A young volunteer encouraged them to draw their biggest dream. Maya bent down beside one boy who clutched his crayon tightly, but hadn't started drawing. "What's your dream?" Maya asked softly. He looked up at her with wide eyes, uncertain. Then he whispered, "A house with windows, lots of windows, so my mom can always see the sun." Maya swallowed hard, blinking back tears. She remembered the years she and her mother had slept in shelters the way windows felt like luxury. She touched the boy's shoulder gently. "That's a beautiful dream. And you know what? You belong in a place where dreams like that can come true." Down the hallway, a teenage girl stood nervously in a mentorship session. The program leader encouraged her to share something she'd never said aloud. Her voice trembled as she confessed, "I was going to drop out of school. I thought no one cared if I stayed or left. But maybe this place means someone does care." The other teens nodded, offering her shy but genuine encouragement. Maya's heart clenched. She saw her younger self in that girl, the nights she'd considered quitting school to work more shifts, the time she thought her future ended at the diner's doors, and now here was proof that a new path could be carved. In a computer lab, a group of mothers sat in front of screens learning basic typing and online navigation. One woman chuckled nervously as her fingers stumbled across the keys. She looked up at Maya with embarrassment. "I thought I was too old for this," the woman admitted. "But if my kids can learn, maybe I can too." Maya smiled. "You're never too old to grow, and look at you. You're already doing it." The woman's grin widened as she typed her first sentence on the screen, a simple declaration. "I can learn." That evening, when the guests had gone home and the lights dimmed, Maya finally sat in her new office. The walls smelled faintly of fresh paint. The desk was bare except for her phone, and yet it felt heavier than any place she'd ever sat. This was her desk. This was her office. Her phone buzzed constantly. She opened it and saw her face plastered across news outlets and social media feeds. Waitress no more. Maya Williams opens Horizon Center. From struggle to strength. How a simple act of kindness built a legacy. Maya Williams, the new voice of hope. Clips of her speech at the gates were going viral. Strangers around the world commented, "You inspire me. You're proof good people exist, the leader we need." But mixed with the praise were the familiar barbs. She's just a waitress propped up by a billionaire. This isn't her work, it's his money. Lucky, not deserving. The words stung. They always did. Maya set the phone down, pressing her hands to her eyes. Maybe they were right. Maybe she was in over her head. The Horizon Center had been open for only a few weeks when word came that the city's mayor wanted to visit. At first, Maya assumed it was a mistake. Politicians rarely cared about places like hers unless there were cameras involved. But on the day of the visit, the mayor himself walked through the doors, flanked by aides. His polished suit, sharp smile, and rehearsed handshake made it clear he wasn't here out of friendship. He was here to assess, maybe even to undermine. "Miss Johnson," he said, extending his hand, "I've heard a lot about the center. I'll admit I was skeptical. A waitress leading a project of this scale? Not exactly standard procedure." The word stung, But Maya held her ground. Gone were the days when she would shrink back at such remarks. She returned his handshake firmly. Sometimes, standard procedure is exactly why things never change, she said. The mayor raised his eyebrows, but she didn't wait for his response. Instead, she led him on a tour. He saw the classrooms, alive with children reading aloud and solving math problems. He saw teenagers in mentorship groups, sharing their stories with counselors. He saw parents in a workshop, learning financial skills to break cycles of debt. Everywhere they walked, people greeted Maya by name. Smiles lit up when she entered a room. Respect followed her like a shadow. By the time they returned to the lobby, the mayor's practiced smile had softened into something genuine. He cleared his throat. I'll be honest. I thought this place would be a photo op that fizzled out. But what you've built, he paused, choosing his words carefully. It's real. And it's exactly what this city needs. Maya nodded. It's not just me. It's the community. They've been waiting for someone to believe in them. For once, the mayor didn't have a clever retort. He simply extended his hand again, this time with quiet respect. You've made a believer out of me, too. As he left, Hassan watched from a distance, silent. He saw the way Maya carried herself steady, fearless, no longer in need of anyone's approval. In that moment, he knew the truth. This was no longer his project to guide. It was hers to own. That evening, he asked Maya to step outside, leading directly into the gifting scene. A knock at the door startled her. Hassan stood there, holding a folder. His face was serious, almost solemn. Come with me, he said. They walked onto the balcony overlooking the city skyline. The Horizon Center glowed proudly behind them, its glass walls lit like a beacon in the night. Hassan handed her the folder. It's time. Maya opened it. Her eyes widened as she scanned the documents. Legal transfers, deeds, bank accounts. She looked up at him in shock. This is ownership, Hassan. This is everything. You're giving me the center? It's already yours, Hassan said calmly. I was only holding it until you were ready. Her knees nearly buckled. No, I can't. I don't have the experience. I don't know how to run something like this. You have something far rarer than experience, Hassan interrupted. You have integrity. You have heart. Do you know how rare it is for someone with power to also have compassion? You refused to look away when others would have. That's why this belongs to you. Tears blurred Maya's vision. But why me? Why trust me with this? Hassan's gaze drifted to the horizon, his voice softer now. When I first came to this country, they called me an outsider, mocked my accent, dismissed me as another immigrant who'd never amount to anything. But my mother taught me something I've never forgotten. Dignity cannot be taken. It can only be surrendered. And Maya, you remind me of her. You fight with the same quiet fire. That's why this is yours. Maya pressed the folder to her chest. I don't know if I can live up to this. Hassan smiled faintly. You already have. In the weeks that followed, the transfer became official. The media exploded. Billionaire hands over multi-million-dollar center to black woman leader. Horizon Center ownership sparks debate. Talk shows argued whether Hassan was reckless or revolutionary. But inside the center, the noise didn't matter. What mattered were the lives being changed. Children rushed into classrooms, filling them with laughter and questions. Teens attended mentorship circles, finding belonging they'd never had before. Parents practiced new skills, their confidence growing day by day. And Maya was no longer just a waitress with dreams too big for her world. She was now their leader, their advocate, their voice. She wasn't borrowing someone else's vision. she was shaping her own. One night, long after the last child had gone home, Maya stood in the main hall alone. She ran her fingers across the mural painted on the wall. Children holding hands beneath a rising sun. For years she'd been told she was too small to matter, too poor, too black, too ordinary. Now she stood inside a building that proved otherwise. She whispered into the quiet as though speaking to her younger self, to her mother, to every person who had ever doubted her. I belong here. I always did. And outside the Horizon Center, life went on. Children walked home with books in their arms, parents smiled with new hope, and the city, piece by piece, began to change. Maya's story was no longer just her own. It belonged to everyone who believed that kindness, once planted, could grow into something unstoppable. If this story moved you, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who believes in kindness, and subscribe for more stories that prove one act of compassion can change the world.